This is just awesome! I haven't enjoyed watching a cartoon series this much in a long time. And I'm not surprised at all that Adventure Time is once again setting the right course for the revitalizing Cartoon Network. And we didn't even believe that a proper spin-off of the Adventure Time universe was possible. And well, here we are. We have adult Finn chopping down creatures in the bloody battles. And if he used to be a kid before, now he is simply a 30-year-old hero who kicks the Lich and the Lords of Hell twice a week. Yeah, he literally snapped the neck of the giant grass bear. Seriously, Adventure Time, with its darkness, grittiness, and the same trademark madness, but now with blood. I've been dreaming for this for years. Yeah, we all wanted and wondered what it would be like if Adventure Time remained as bright, colorful, and cool, but with a bit more seriousness. And now I finally see it on the screen. Of course, Adventure Time has shown seriousness in different moments before, but here I can see that they decided to make the whole series like that. It only took 2 episodes to bring back the spirit of Adventure Time for me, but now it's grown up, ready to give so many more new stories that I didn't even suspect. So hello to all my dear buddies, I'm Dee and you're watching DeeAnimations channel, and Adventure Time is once again conquering all imaginable and unimaginable limits of coolness and interest in the world of cartoons. As many of you remember, Adventure Time is truly a legendary cartoon series of the 2010s. For 10 years, it's delighted us with an endless stream of interesting characters, episodes, and, in general, broke the barriers of madness and seriousness. When it seemed like to most adult reviewers and fans of all kinds of movies, the candy-colored world with happy people, fun, and parties turned out to be a post-apocalypse with radioactive death and hell that ruined humanity. Buried under layers of earth somewhere, and mutants, humans, human mutants, animals, all that stuff, science, magic, well, everything is mixed into one crazy mix called the Land of Ooh. And just remember, once upon a time, Adventure Time actually saved Cartoon Network from bankruptcy. And thanks to it, years later, we got Steven's Universe and other various cartoons that we've been watching since 2010. And I remember that even a small tribute was paid in a crossover episode of OKKO, where Ben 10 transformed into all the Cartoon Network heroes and delivered the final blow in the form of Finn. It was an allegory that Adventure Time once saved the channel from closure, and Adventure Time made such a huge impact worldwide that it was phenomenal. Merchandise was everywhere, many cartoons and various channels tried to parody Adventure Time, and even now most web animators or aspiring creators say that they want to make their project similar to Adventure Time. The echoes of Adventure Time's past greatness can still be heard. With each season, both the characters and the audience grew. We went from simple, chill episodes to complex relationships, divided and lost love, true villainy, and truly broken fate of the Ice King. It was from him that Adventure Time finally showed the audience that it wasn't just a funny show. And his story, well, perhaps, is one of the saddest in the entire project. Or perhaps one of the saddest in cartoons in general. Through the Ice King, we can see the accumulation of sadness in Adventure Time, which only converges in one character if you think about it. Not only our beloved Finn, but on Simon Petrikov, who was both the insane Ice King due to the curse of the crown and an allegory for mentally ill people who, like in our real world, have forgotten not only their loved ones, but also themselves. And well, in such cases, what is left for the loved ones of these people to do? Honestly, Simon is probably one of the hidden treasures of this project that, like a treasure hunter, the audience still needs to uncover. Following the exciting adventures of Finn and Jake, which take place not only in the cool magical world that concealed the nuclear war, but also in a distant past during the time of dinosaurs. In the present, the real human present, the years of the Great Mushroom War, which legend in this world named after the giant mushrooms towering above the sky, alluding to the nuclear war that changed the world. And gradually, the slowly going insane Simon saved the little girl Marceline. But besides these times, it also touched upon a more distant future, thousands of years later, other worlds and dimensions, and even the afterlife, where a year or 2 ago the last feature film symbolizing the continuation of Finn and Jake's adventures ended, even after death. After all, these 2 brothers has already gone through multiple reincarnations, enjoying and hanging out together through centuries and millennia. Space and time, and now the special Adventure Time came out about Fiona and Cake. And at the beginning, when we all saw the announcement of this news, no one, to put it mildly, believed in this project. After all, what are Fiona and Cake? It's some kind of a phantom creation of the Ice King in which all the characters simply change gender and so on, I don't know. In other words, it's the same Adventure Time. The meaning of this project. However, in reality, when 2 episodes was released, Fiona and Cake turned out to be not some alternative continuation of spin-off that we saw in the regular Adventure Time, where all the characters simply change gender. Like the Ice King is now Ice Queen, and Finn is Fiona, and Jake is Cake, and so on. However, as soon as I started these 2 episodes, I immediately understood that the guys decided not to just make money by milking the franchise. No, these guys knew what we wanted, as viewers. And I'm serious. The beginning starts very non-standardly because of a visual style. And I immediately understood that the project will not look like this. Adventure Time always played with the visual aspect. Sometimes they had 3D, sometimes they invited some exotic artists to show their vision, and so on. But it is the series and feature films, not separate experiments, that always have the recognizable minimalist style of Adventure Time, but not devoid of seriousness when needed. And here I see this airy, cool, dreamlike, all that stuff, and obviously this reference to Sailor Moon is exactly what it is. This is literally Fiona's dream. Even an ice prince appears. It's just like all those memes with Sailor Moon. But only the stones of that magma elephant are not on the crown here, but on the clothes. And when Fiona wakes up, we see that it's not an Adventure Time that we are used to seeing with the magic and all of that stuff. This is the Adventure Time if it didn't have a drop of magic, a drop of fantasy, a drop of whatever makes the Adventure Time an Adventure Time, or any kind of cartoon. It literally refers to our, unfortunately, gray reality. That is literally our world. And Fiona is really dying at work. She changes jobs like gloves and constantly can't find herself. And this is one of the main problems of people in general nowadays. Yeah, that's my life over there. And oh my god, the song playing in the background when they show Fiona's world. Just listen to it. It's about how even in the company of friends she feels empty. Everything sounds, well, how should I put it? Melancholic, but pleasant, but the words are definitely unpleasant. Again, referring to our gray reality. It seems like nothing stands out, but it's precisely this gray weekday routine that sometimes kills many of us in life. And Fiona, by the way, feels like a atypical strong woman who always portrayed in modern movies. And these movies doesn't even know how to properly show them. Only has strengths in her words and only the thought that strength is strength and nothing more. However, Fiona does not look like an empty female character just to be a female character. She looks like a character who has her own problems, strange, soulful, and life questions, and damn, you can feel it. That's it, it feels like a living person, not 50 cardboard characters without meaning, whose only factor of their personality is that they're so perfect and strong and right in everything that questioning any of their decisions is absolutely impossible. No way, no. Phew. There's so many of these characters in animated series. Fiona somehow contrasts sharply with them. And the fact that she literally interrupts an argument by undressing to her underwear doesn't ruin anything. Seriously. So, in short, the first episode of Adventure Time looks quite strange and unexpectedly. And here's a despair, stupid routine, constant job changes, and even the cat got sick. And there's not even enough money for the vet. So they have to look for charlatans. For example, a homeless LSP, and this is the male version of Lumpy Space Princess. And obviously, such a character in reality would be an incomprehensible homeless charlatan. What is particularly pleasing is to see the ordinary versions of different characters that we remember from Adventure Time. They are in the bus. The Marshall Lee, the Prince Gumball, and many others. And Cake has a constant headache. Well, of course, we're all waiting for such catch. And at some point, it just took a sharp turn, teleported somewhere, and the first episode ended abruptly. And yes, as you understood, the first episode at the beginning was a very non-standard approach. Of course, I was already intrigued by the fact that it was not what I expected. However, the second one completely shattered all my fleeting disappointment. Like in the series about Fiona, and we won't see Finn and Jake. Now, the second episode is what you all wanted, just saying. We see the worlds of Adventure Time 15 years after the end of 10th season, maybe 20 years later. The world seems to be relatively stable. Let the people from the island arc return, gradually settling in such floating cities, our familiar characters continue to live, and Simon is experiencing his incomprehensible existential crisis. And with him, the 30-year-old giant pumped-up Finn gets drunk. Just look how handsome he is, oh my god, I just can't. If at the age of 15 he defeated dragons, monsters, and much more, then here, perhaps, there is absolutely nothing that could make him hesitate or even scare him. He simply instantly turns any attackers on Simon into a bloody mess, breaks the neck of the bear with one move, and his pain threshold is simply non-existent. He rejoices if someone manages to injure him. This is no longer Finn, this is just some kind of an anime, I don't know. And besides, Finn doesn't mindlessly kill everyone. He approached to thank the fish for his sacrifice, and then he and Simon ate it together. And what's interesting is we also see Jake's tattoo, and everything indicates that he is indeed absent. Well, yeah, most theories converge to one fact that Finn got the tattoo because Jake died. Although we saw shots of Jake's alive together with Finn somewhere in the show's promotional campaign. Maybe it will be a flashback in the episodes or some kind of a magic, I don't know, we'll just find out. I guess we have to wait. But what particularly pleased me, well, okay, come on, shippers, come out, this is your time now. Oh, how happy that made me. Many years ago, everyone argued about who Finn should be with, Marceline or Flame Princess or Bubblegum. Flame didn't work out. Bubblegum is a piece of work, seriously. She may be pretty, but living with her is just too much, I guess. Remember how she treated her own created family? She literally a totalitarian dictatorial leader who presents herself as a good princess, but considering what her rule leads to in episodes dedicated to the future, we understand that none of her decisions have led to anything good. Marceline and Finn were just fans shipping them. After all, Marceline somehow didn't click with him, and I don't remember them even trying to date each other in any way. But the Huntress Wizard, I remember myself, she was the first to realize that it's not worth missing out on such a guy. And in that same episode where they just hang out, she gave him a cute little smooch right there. And considering that her name, Huntress Wizard, is mentioned very often, I tend to believe that Finn ultimately ended up with her. Well, all the others are idiots. Just look at the hero you missed out on. The Huntress Wizard definitely knows who needs to be snatched up, and her hunt was successful. But now it throws you into thoughts. Hang on a sec. What is happening here? A minute ago we were watching Cake and Fiona's routine, and now it's all crazy adventure timey in all its glory and with blood. And now I just want to say that for now, this whole spin-off is increasingly connected to all the story arcs of Simon and the Ice King. Here, more than half of the episode is dedicated to his existential crisis. It is his thoughtless decisions that will lead to Fiona and Cake ultimately ending up in Finn's and Jake's world. But in order to understand all of this, you will have to watch all the 10 seasons of Adventure Time, so good luck with that! So I'll have to try to briefly explain and remind you of the stories of the Crown and the Ice King and the tragedy of Simon Petrikov, so that you can understand how everything works here and why the cat came out of Simon's head. Yeah, I got you, don't worry. And before we begin, shout out to everyone who is liking, subscribing and clicking the notification bell. I love you guys, thank you so much, and without you, these videos would be impossible. So let's continue, and listen up, I won't go into all the details because over the years, over 10 years of Adventure Time, it has become one of the most massive lore-based animated franchises out there. We have incredible shows like Gravity Falls with its lore and others, but over 10 freaking years, Adventure Time has become too huge. But our story begins in prehistoric times, where elementals, spirits of specific elements that exist in every era, tried to save themselves and the world from the fall of an evil green comet, which, accordingly to theory, brought the Lich into the world of Adventure Time and likely destroyed the dinosaurs, because every comet brings something with it. And that's why they're called catalyst comets. One of these comets brought the essence of Finn, his soul, into this world, or the planet Earth. And since then, he is constantly being reincarnated on our planet to prevent the destruction of all living things. The Ice King Evergreen, who is also an ice elemental, froze his colleagues because they wanted to stop him from creating a crown whose function is to grant one cherished wish, which needs to be wished with all your heart. Not just said like, I wish the comet would disappear. No, it has to be a heartfelt wish. And then the crown and the magic in it responded to it. Here we have a simple moral. Beware of your wishes! Evergreen, although a powerful sorcerer, was quite selfish. He didn't notice his comrades or friends at all. He was a fool. Seriously, he didn't pay any attention to his companion and supposed student or assistant. A little dinosaur named Gunter, mostly Evergreen just yelled at him. Like, Gunter, don't do that, or Gunter, don't do this, fetch me this, all that kind of stuff. but all he wanted is to learn magic and be like his idol, Evergreen. However, at the most critical moment, when his staff, which held 3 magical red stones that powered the crown, was taken away, Gunther stormed into Evergreen's castle and ruined everything. The debris of buildings crushed to the sorcerer, and the crown was worn by a little dinosaur who was called Gunther. But the true cherished wish of one little dinosaur wasn't to save the world, which Evergreen hardly even talked about with him. It wasn't a great feat or any virtue. All the little dinosaur wanted was to become like Evergreen, to be similar to his idol, and since Evergreen never told Gunther about magic, never taught him about it, or showed any kindness towards Gunther, Gunther remembered Evergreen as an old man with a crown who constantly yelled at everyone, saying, "Gunther do this, Gunther do that," and unleashed ice upon everything. The crown granted the wish, ever changing the personality of the dinosaur itself. The comet wasn't stopped, and the prehistoric world was destroyed, and the crown has been passed from one bearer to another ever since. Throughout the centuries of history, essentially deforming and breaking the personalities of the crown bearers, because the wish was made only once, and that's why it now always works this way. So this is not the crown of the Ice King. It shouldn't make you a sorcerer of fire and snow or something. Essentially, for millennia the crown has only fulfilled one wish of a dinosaur millions of years ago, to resemble a sorcerer who possessed the magic of ice, and that's all. And although all those who wore the crown remained Ice Kings, even though the crown was removed, because somehow the crown was connected to their soul and so on, and they would remain the Ice King until they somehow die. And remnants of their memory, soul, and echoes of personality still live somewhere within the technomagical circuits of the crown. Yes, the crown is pure technomagic. And when magic and science come together, something truly powerful and unique emerges. Among the echoes, there is also Gunther, that person whom all of humanity will call the first Santa Claus. Well, you know, the strange old man with snow and so on. That's where it all comes from. And in general, there are others who wore the crown before. It is worth noting that the crown certainly changes your personality and soul, driving you crazy, but it grants magical powers sufficient to freeze the entire planet. It's just that Ice Kings rarely used it to its full potential. And by the way, since Evergreen constantly yielded Gunther, all those who wore the crown and became the Ice King would find themselves a small sidekick, a dwarf, gnome, I don't know, a child. You would constantly call them Gunther. The first Santa Claus probably had some elves as his Gunthers, and so on. Centuries later, Simon Petrikov, a history and esotericism enthusiast who collected various magical artifacts out of interest, even found that very guidebook, the Enchiridion, whose true power few understand. It leads straight to the cosmic wish granter and other various incomprehensible texts. Simon even found information about the creature known as Gulp, which embodies chaos. And Gulp himself is not just a character, while the Lich, one of the greatest villains in modern animation, and he is merely the last scholar of Gulp.
I know exactly what I am. I am the ceaseless wheel, the last scholar of Golb.
That Gulp is a being that existed even before known space and time, and Gulp himself still exists somewhere out there beyond the realms of time and existence, in the black void. Because wherever Gulp goes, the world, the very fabric of reality, will crumble only from his breath. In addition to his unique knowledge, Simon finds that very crown, and as soon as he jokingly put it on, he lost control of himself. He doesn't know what he did then, what he said, and he started going crazy. But after he took it off, he forever lost his only love. The only one he loved, Betty, whom he called his princess. He looked for her everywhere, but never found her. But how could he know that he needed to search not where, but when? From the distant future, Simon opened a portal in time and brought her to his future, using a special power of emotions and feelings. Let's say all the magic in Adventure Time is based on emotions, feelings, madness, and suffering. If you take away trauma and suffering from a wizard, the wizard usually loses the ability to use magic in most cases. And all wizards, as a rule, are slightly broken soul people. Remember this. The crown slowly changed Simon in the present. A nuclear war began. The magic of the crown prevented Simon from dying from any radiation, and Marceline, she is the daughter of human and demon Hansin Abadir. And since she is a half-demon, she was also insensitive to radiation. So Simon and little Marceline survived and tried to maintain hope and joy even on those conditions. There, among the ruins, Simon found a plushie toy, a bear cub, which he gave to Marceline. It was Marceline's love for this thing as the most important thing from her childhood that would help Simon in the future. Defending Marceline, Simon increasingly used the crown, which made him go insane more and more often. But think about it. The crown changes the personality of the wearer beyond recognition, so in the future, Simon will even forget who he was. But he loved his wife so much that the desire to find some princess imprinted even in the clouded mind of the Ice King, breaking through the curse of the crown. That is why the Ice King, whom we know from Adventure Time, constantly flew around and kidnapped princesses. After all, the last thing left of Simon in the Ice King is to find his love, someone he once called a princess. That is why he kidnapped anyone who calls themselves a princess. Just for fun or for real status, it doesn't matter. The main thing is a princess. And the name and who Simon was in the Ice King have long been erased from memory. So 1000 years passed. That's when the series of Adventure Time began. We saw Finn and Jake fighting the Ice King and so on. We once learned his story from buried cassettes. Although it's kind of amazing that tapes survived after 1000 years. By the way, the film kind of deteriorates. But it was Simon's personality that returns because of the incident in the City of Wizards. During a summoning by a group of wizards, a being named Bella Noche drained all the magic from the creatures in her vicinity, causing the crown to lose its magic and freeing Simon's mind. In the future, armed with all his knowledge, magic and everything else, he used that teddy bear as a nostalgic, melancholic, emotional portal through which he found Betty, opening a time portal and bringing her back from the past. However, without the crown's magic, Simon cannot survive. It was the crowns that kept him alive, and even death itself was chasing after him. But Betty, she's just as stubborn as Simon. She won't stop at anything until she saves her husband. So she goes there, kicking the hell out of Bella Noche and restored the magic to the crown. And you know where that leads to. Simon went mad again. And in some year, she not only figured out how magic works in Adventure Time world, she watched over all the wizards, understood how it operates, that is based on suffering, madness and other emotional traumas. She took the magic and thus insanity from the magical person from Mars. She understood the importance of the Enchiridion, that magical and powerful book. She learned a lot about cosmology, about Gulp. And because she drained the magic, she went crazy and did all this for a grand plan. The only one who can break the laws of the reality is pure chaos and destruction in flesh. It's Gulp. With the help of her unclear emotional manipulations, Betty was able to summon him in the finale of Adventure Time, in the 10th season. Inside Gulp's stomach, where Betty, Simon and Finn ended up, they were not just being digested. Gulp's stomach seems to digest their layers of existence as characters. In essence, their narrative arcs peeled away. And the crown reverted to a state where no one made wishes. And that was millions of years ago. And now it could fulfill anything over again. And Simon was not a madman. Betty also regained her sanity, because her original state was not a crazy wizard. However, the presence of Gulp in the world will lead to everything turning into nothingness. That is why he exists beyond reality, in the black void of non-existence, because he cannot be near anything at all. And then Betty wished for Gulp to disappear. But even a wish cannot do that, because Gulp is literal annihilation. You cannot destroy destruction. It's a universal law. It doesn't work like that. And that's why her wish gained the power, the ability to save Simon. And then Betty's essence merged with Gulp. The essence of a human merged with something that surpasses gods and even reality itself. And we see this in the design, when Gulp merges with Betty. And this little drop of humanity and love, which is now mixed somewhere in Gulp, was enough for Gulp, who was previously inactive, just floating in nowhere, to fly away from where he came from. It was done only for that purpose. And that's how the 10th season of Adventure Time ended. But here comes the continuation about Fiona and Cake. And as you understand, all of this was important, and all these seasons, all the story arcs were leading up to this. Even in the intro Fiona and Cake, we can notice the appearance of Gulp's picture, which also cracks monochromatically, just like what happened to him when Betty merged with him. And he performed his great magical magic. We see the existential crisis of Simon 15-20 years after the end of the series. He is a man from a distant past, torn into this horrible, insane world for him. Yes, there is no post-apocalypse here for him, but he literally doesn't know what to do. Looking at how he gradually succumbs to the meaningless of his existence, Simon becomes terribly pitiful. Of course, he tries to run an antique shop, our modern and human one, but everyone everywhere still remembers him as an Ice King, who once wrote fictional stories about Fiona and Cake, which became a very popular tale. And any mention of this horror of being the Ice King brings Simon constant anger and thousands of oppressive years. How many lives he ruined, how much he suffered himself, being lost in himself. Even ice cubes infuriate him. It's a natural trauma for him. I'm sure he even sits without air conditioning in the summer or something like that. And despite Finn's attempts to help him relax, change his thought pattern, Finn even takes him out on an adventure where, as you understand, there's a constant danger to life and Simon just screams. They wander here and there, fighting monsters. Well, Finn is not the best assistant in that regard, of course. Finn has long known who he is, he knows his place in this world. But let's praise our guy, he is still trying to help Simon, and Finn technically knows Ice King, or Simon, for almost his entire life. From the ages of 10, 15, they're not strangers to each other. Finn is really awesome, and I'm so happy for our little guy. But things actually are very sad for Simon. Everything that probably keeps him from self-destruction is likely the memory of Betty, his wife. And at the end of the second episode, when he is completely crushed by meaningless and uncertainty, we see Simon with a constructed, occult, esoteric altar to Gulp, who is now considered a deity, which is Betty. He begins to recite a certain incantation that resonates with what was spoken a couple of years ago.
His presence is felt in every crevice where chaos lurks. Imagine if we could somehow harness all that dank energy.
And Simon uses the same ritual that Betty used to try to connect his soul, memories and emotions, directing them towards Betty, in order to reach her or summon her to him. This is probably the only way to find her, as even the Prismo, the universal wishmaster, emitting waves of time from its room, through which time itself exists, could not find her, despite Simon wishing for it. We saw this in the ending of the 10th season, when memories were being rewound. After all, according to the hierarchy in cosmology and in the land of Oo, Gulp stands much higher. And what's the fun part? A goose that is now like a vampire or something like strangely evil. Although in the spin-off about Mince Butler, he was killed. Maybe he was resurrected or something, I don't know. So Simon used this goose as some kind of suffering battery that needs to be constantly shocked or made to suffer for this ritual to work. But the goose kept saying something bad towards Simon or reminding him of the Ice King, and Simon gets furious about it. And when the goose mentioned something about Fiona and Cake, it again triggered anger in Simon, because he hates everything that connects him to the Ice King. However, any emotions are important in this ritual. That's why everything fell apart. And when Simon thought about Fiona and Cake, through time and space, unknown dimensions and realities, from the uncertain possibility that somewhere there exists a universe with Fiona and Cake, Simon summoned Cake through this ritual, and the episode abruptly ends. I am incredibly happy that Adventure Time has not forgotten a single drop of the lore it has built up over the past 10 years. All the fans who watched Adventure Time were searching for all these details and lore. You can see here how it all comes together. It's incredible in my opinion. Not many people remember and retain all the plot details to build up the lore. You yourself remember that when the authors of The Witcher are given pre-made books and games, they do something of their own and it turns out to be a complete mess. But here, little details scattered over 10 years are collected in one place. Nothing is forgotten and everything is done for a reason. And now it's turning into an action-packed, emotional and bloody continuation. I don't know what the next episodes will be like yet. Although, if I don't have time and the third episode comes out, well, I'll review it as well. And if not, then here we are finished. And while I was peacefully sleeping, 2 more new episodes were released. And yes, the level of awesomeness did not drop even a bit. Whether it's the episode with Cake or with Fiona, the 4th episode reveals the whole world structure of the Adventure Time multiverse, showing beings that even stand above Prismo and strangely resembling Gulp. There's this detective who investigates interdimensional crimes and anomalies that were caused by the Prismo itself. And basically, like a true fanfiction writer, he created the world of Fiona and Cake as a not-so-great writer copying the world of Finn and Jake, which he constantly watches. It turns out that according to the laws of creation, he cannot do anything for himself, so he simply hid the Fiona and Cake universe inside the Ice King's head, and once Simon became normal, all the magic disappeared from Fiona's world. And the new information about the multiverse, the great forces that create waves of time, which were mentioned 7 years ago in one of the episodes with Leech, is incredibly inspiring and motivating. Simon, who now constantly runs away from his depression but is ready to sacrifice himself again for someone, touches the soul incredibly. And that's not the way out. I hope Simon understands that he doesn't need to become the Ice King again to protect Fiona and Cake and bring magic back to the world. That he doesn't need to run away from his problems but solve them. I think this is the whole moral of this new season. I think this is literally what I've been waiting for a long time, and seeing that with proper effort you can actually create incredible, worthy continuations that are not inferior to the original, then guys, good cartoon authors have not run out yet. And Cartoon Network has incredibly pleased me. Cartoon Network has had many problems lately. Throughout the past year, due to the merger of Discovery and Warner Brothers, lots of scandals, layoffs, animated series being removed, and so on. This is a complete mess. I will tell you more about this outcome of this epic later. But I'm glad that I see such a result as Fiona and Cake, and I'm glad that everything turned out fine. And we will watch a lot of various and incredibly interesting things. So stay tuned, and thank you all. Like and subscriptions from you, and I will see you in the next one.